The Cricket World Cup, the biggest prize that there is in cricket, is just about 3.5 months away, and the schedule wasn't out. Usually the norm is that you get to know about the schedule of a World Cup a good 14 months in advance.
Yeah.
This time it wasn't the case, and a lot of fans were aggrieved, were upset because they couldn't...
Got to make their travel plans.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. So they just now have 3.5 months to make those travel plans. But as I said, better late than never. They finally have the schedule. I mean, there were a few logistical issues. We don't know the exact reasons why, and people were, as I was speaking to a lot of fans, also a lot of travel operators who organize for these fan parties to travel. And more so people, whilst I was there in England just now for the WTC final, a lot of English and Australian fans, because for them to take out time from their busy schedule, their work schedule, it was getting tougher. So one was the booking and the costs involved, because the later you do, it becomes expensive. The other was to take that much time away from work. That also needed some sort of planning. That wasn't happening. But as I said, now with 3.5 months,
sure enough,
they have
like
time.
you said, better late than never. 3 months ahead of time. You have India, one of the favorite teams. Could I say that safely? 2011, we won the ODI World Cup. Are we looking forward to rewrite history?
There'll be a lot of pressure on the Indian team. Now, they haven't won an ICC title for more than a decade. They've come very close. They've reached the semi-finals and the finals, but haven't been able to take that final step. This time, they have the chance. And we have the India schedule, which I'm guessing most of our viewers would be interested in. The round-robin games that India play. Now, each team, remember, just so that our viewers know the entire format, 10 teams in all that will be there. And each of those teams play against each other. So 9 games in the round-robin league, each team gets to play. And then the top 4 teams that you have after the round-robin is over, where each team has played against each other. You have the top 4 team based on point system that end up in the semi-final. That was the exact same format that was followed last time around in the 2019 World Cup. India did make it to the semi-final as the table toppers, as the team that really stood out in the qualifying stage, but then went on to lose that semi-final to New Zealand. Just so that our viewers know, the first match itself is going to be a blockbuster. It does not involve the Indian team, but the first match itself, and because for any tournament to really get that impetus and that start, you need to have the first game, which is very exciting. So the first game starts on the 5th of October. That is England versus New Zealand, to be played in Ahmedabad. And why is this a blockbuster clash? Because this is the repeat of the 2019 World Cup final. One of the most exciting finals, if not the most exciting cricket game that we've ever seen. That was the final last time around, 2019. England taking on New Zealand. And on that occasion, England won the game, became world champions. So it's a repeat of last time's final as the first game of the World Cup. So you couldn't have asked for a better start. England taking on New Zealand.
So how long is the entire World Cup going to be this time? And could you give us a sense on the Asia Cup that happens before the World Cup? Does that really hamper India's enthusiasm or energy levels and spirit on field, or does it just motivate them more?
No, I think it adds on. To building up. In fact, the reason that you've had the Asia Cup in the last few editions, if you see, it's happened right before an ICC tournament. And the reason they do that is because it works as a warm-up sort of a tournament. That's not to say that anybody takes the Asia Cup lightly, but it helps you prepare for a big tournament. And usually the Asia Cup format keeps changing based on the ICC trophy that you're going to have. So supposing if there's an ICC T20 World Cup, Asia Cup will be played in a T20 format. This time it's a 50-over World Cup. So the Asia Cup is now 50-over format. So that's exactly how they go on and play that particular format.
So India is, you said there's pressure, but India certainly is looked at as one of the favorites. We also have Rahul Rawat joining us live. Rahul, give us a sense of the enthusiasm, the excitement. Nikhil was just mentioning that the schedule has come out a tad bit late, really close to the World Cup itself, barely 3 months, but finally it's out. Indians, fans of cricket world over, can finally take a breather, plan their schedule. And I'd ask you the same question. Is really India, Team India, the favorites this time?
Well, they should be, considering that they're familiar with the conditions. They should be, and what has happened in the last 4 World Cups, 2011, India were the hosts. They won the World Cup 2015. Australia were the hosts. They won the World Cup 2019. England were the hosts. They also won the World Cup. Now it is back in India. Let's hope. But for that to happen, India will have to play well. But Nabila, Nikhil has already shared most of the information, but I would just like to share one important piece of information here. the two semi-finals. So now, earlier, what BCCI had earlier proposed was that the two semi-finals should be played in Chennai. Now, because of the rains in that part of the country, that those semi-finals have now been moved to Bombay, that is Mumbai and Kolkata. Now, if they make it to the semi-finals, India will play in Mumbai, that is at the Wankhede Stadium, and Pakistan, although they had shared, in fact, they had reservations on certain venues. Um, so ICC, of course, has not agreed to it, but there is one allowance that ICC has given to Pakistan is that if they make it to the semi-finals, they will not play in Mumbai because Pakistan didn't want to play their semi-final game in Mumbai. So if they also make it to the semi-final, they will play in Kolkata at the Eden Gardens. So what happens is if both India and Pakistan they make it to the semi-finals and are drawn against each other, then that game will happen in Kolkata and not in Mumbai because Pakistan had reservations playing in Mumbai.
Yeah,
go on, Nikhil.
that happened. If you remember, there had been issues earlier as well when Pakistan was scheduled to play in Mumbai. There were instances of the pitch being dug up, and probably that's why Pakistan has that reservation. So just to reiterate what Rahul is saying, if India qualify for the semi-final and their opposition is not Pakistan, then India do end up playing their semi-final in Mumbai. It's only if India's opposition is Pakistan, then India's semi-final will be played in Kolkata, which then probably isn't great news for the fans. And I'm always, siding with the fans as, and spectators because they need to really chalk out their travel plan well in advance. So this then could be an issue because you really don't know. Usually what happens, they give seedings to the teams to ensure that if they do make it to the top four, you know exactly which venue they'll be playing their semi-finals in. This time around also they've done that, whereby India is scheduled to play, if they make it to the semi-final, is scheduled to play their semi-final in Mumbai. But if their opposition is Pakistan, then they don't, and the game then moves to Kolkata. That's one thing that they've taken into consideration, Rahul, when it comes to Pakistan. But they haven't in other regards where Pakistan had a lot of reservations. They did not, for example, want to play Afghanistan in Chennai because it was a spin-friendly track. But as I see it, they are now, or they will have to play Afghanistan in Chennai and various other venues that have been allocated to them.
Well, that's right, and it was expected also to an extent because that would have meant that Pakistan they would have wanted to change most of their games because each team it's a 10-team competition. One team plays 9 matches in the league stage, in the round robin stage. So, which means that almost 50% of the games they wanted to change, or the schedule or the venues they wanted to change. But that's fair enough. Chennai now they'll have to play against Afghanistan. But remember, India are also playing against Afghanistan in Delhi, and you know how the wicket in Delhi at the Firozshah Kotla Stadium is.
Well, that's true. Another spin-friendly track, but then Indian team.
I'm really curious to know the playing 11. Do we all have all of them intact? Who's out this time? Is there any controversy that we are likely to see in terms of?
Not so much in the 50-over format. I think majority of the discussion that has been around the Indian team or the controversy has been circling around the T20 format. I think if we were to list down the 15 that India will pick for the World Cup, I think pretty much we'd be in agreement at least about 13 or 12 of those names, provided everyone is fit. Now, the one thing that India or the Indian team is fretting over right now is the fitness of a lot of players. You know, the likes of KL Rahul, Shreyas Iyer, Rishabh Pant. We don't know whether all of this. Jasprit Bumrah, we get to hear that he'll be fit in time. But these are certain big names, certain names that are certainties in the 50-over format. So we don't know whether they're going to be fit in time. We will, of course, get to know. There is still 3.5 months, and India is going to be playing a lot of ODI cricket leading up to that World Cup. Asia Cup is something that you just mentioned. Yeah. So we'll get to see whether these players are fit or not. But their availability is going to be very crucial. What I can tell you is that you're going to definitely see your regulars in Rohit Sharma being the captain, as well as, Virat Kohli being part of that team, Hardik Pandya, Mohammad Shami, the usual suspect, all of them are going to be there. So not too much of a debate when it comes to the 50-over format. I think the majority of pressure that'll come on the Indian team is going to be from the point of view of not having won an ICC trophy. And this time you're playing at home. The last time you played a World Cup at home, 2011, you were the champion, so expectations are high. These are conditions that you're familiar with. As I said, fans have been waiting patiently for that big ICC trophy. Every time you've slipped on not getting that ICC trophy, there's been a bit of a churn in the Indian team. If India were not to lift another ICC trophy in a World Cup that is going to be played at home, then I believe there could be a lot of churn in this Indian team. You could possibly see a lot of legends that have been playing for the Indian team for a long time probably play for the last time. But that, I think, is a discussion we'll get to as and when the World
I know,
Cup
but
starts.
I'd like you to mention those names. Who are those legends who are possibly going to play for the last time? Are we going to see this to be their last World Cup?
Also depends on how India does. But, there are a lot of players that are on the wrong side of the 30s, which is, edging towards the end of the career. There is, of course, Rohit Sharma in that. There is Virat Kohli, though Virat, a couple of years younger than him, and also Virat's fitness has been outstanding. So clearly he has that kind of fitness to go for another World Cup. And in the 50-over format, he's been absolutely outstanding. But there could be a few fast bowlers, as I mentioned. Mohammad Shami could be one of those that probably does play his last World Cup. But as I said, it'll all depend on the result. If India were to go on and win the World Cup, then I think that gives a fresh lease of life to a lot of players, and where they can continue and probably even target another, if not another World Cup, maybe a couple more years in the white ball format. So, but that will depend on India's results, on the individual performances of some of the players that we are talking about.
India is playing instead of Pakistan and Sri Lanka this Asia World Cup. Would you be telling us is that the scenario?
The Asia Cup?
Yeah, the Asia Cup.
The Asia Cup is going to be played now in a hybrid model where half of those games, or less than half of the games, are being played in Pakistan. But majority of those games will be played in Sri Lanka. Now, these are going to be the teams that will face off again in the World Cup. And that's going to be very exciting. I mean, look at India's schedule, for example. The first game, and people can view it differently. The first game, they are up against, their nemesis. Arguably the strongest team in white ball cricket's history, Australia. So how do you then approach that first game? Do you take it in a way that, okay, it's best when you're fresh, all excited for the World Cup, it's best to take on an opposition as strong as Australia in your very first game? That's one way of looking at it. Or there's another way of looking at it. You wouldn't want to face a team like Australia in your first game because you might be slightly cold going into the tournament. You would have wanted to face a few other teams, maybe the likes of Bangladesh or in Afghanistan, or maybe a qualifier here and there, get into the groove, get into the rhythm, and then come across teams like Australia. But that's not the case. So if you look at India's start, Australia is a tough game. Then you have Afghanistan, that can be a dangerous team in ODI cricket. And then you have the biggest game of them all, India versus Pakistan in Ahmedabad. So it's not going to be a slow start for India. If India wants to make or win the tournament or even think of qualifying for the semi-final, they'll have to hit the ground running from the word go. So, I mean, make of it whatever you want to, but it does seem like not a very easy road for India, considering that they're starting with some very, very tough game. The other bit, and Rahul, I think, is still with us, India versus Pakistan, there were a few doubts from the Pakistan side that Ahmedabad, they may not be very keen to be playing in Ahmedabad, but that's another request, I think, that has been turned down.
Well, I believe so. And because you mentioned about, I think there were three issues that they had. One you've already shared, that was they didn't want to play Afghanistan in Chennai. And then Ahmedabad was another bone of contention for them. And the third, of course, was that they didn't want to play in Mumbai. Their semi-final game in Mumbai. So Ahmedabad was was another issue that Pakistan had, but of course they didn't have any valid reasons to back those reservations. So which ICC has turned down. And you were mentioning about the opening the first three matches for the Indian team. So India, the good thing for them, you can say is that the last couple of games, if you see the last three games they are playing, out of those three games, two are against qualifiers. So just in case, if they believe that they're short on net run rate, they can always make up with those qualifying teams. Believe Zimbabwe, and as it seems right now, Zimbabwe and Sri Lanka look the most likely of the two qualifiers that who will make it to the World Cup. But and very contrasting to how Pakistan's schedule is. India, they're starting with the big games. Australia, as you mentioned, on 8th of October. Then on 11th they're playing Afghanistan. Then on 15th they're playing Pakistan. So first three games very crucial. As against Pakistan, the first two games they're playing against two qualifiers. Maybe they'll get a momentum, Pakistan, but it can it you have pros and cons. If you start well for India, if they start well, they can get the momentum. But if you see what happened in 2021 T20 World Cup, they played first game against Pakistan, then against New Zealand, and losses in those two games virtually ended their hopes of making it to the knockouts. So I hope the Indian team can start well in the World Cup this time.
So 5th of October all the way to the 19th of November. And you said Ahmedabad is where the finals will be taking place. We hear semi-finals is going to be held in Mumbai and Kolkata. Yeah. So in terms of the pitch, in terms of weather conditions, all of that, the game itself is set up right in time, right after summer, before winter. Weather conditions, I believe, is going to be the most ideal at that point.
Yes, in terms of the temperatures maybe, but not in terms of the conditions that are going to be on offer, because this is the time when, Nabila, you get a lot of dew across the country. What that means is that toss is going to play a very important role. So if you're going to be bowling second, most of these matches are day and night encounters. If you're bowling second, it's a wet ball. It's not going to be easy. So, this could also then prove to be a luck of the draw sort of a scenario in India, because you're playing the World Cup at this time of the year. If you remember, the last World Cup that happened in India in 2011, that was played in the typical cricketing season of March, then till April. And that was probably better conditions, more ideal conditions to have an even encounter when it came to batting first or batting second in an innings. This time around, I think dew is going to play a major role in all matches, starting from the 5th of October, going up till 19th November, and as you get closer to the winter, it's going to get worse. So I think that is going to be a major concern. They might change the timing of the matches by an hour or so and start them slightly earlier. I believe that's already on the agenda, that they'll do it. Instead of having a slightly late start, which you've gotten accustomed to in India, the games might start slightly earlier. The other thing that really is of note that we really need to look at in terms of the venues that have been selected, some notable omissions, some very prominent test centers, some very prominent cricket grounds have got no games. One of them that really stands out is Mohali. So no games to Mohali. You don't have a single game there. 8 cities in all will be hosting. No game to Jaipur as well. Another one of those traditional venues that you've had, which has hosted some big games. No game to Indore, another venue that has seen a few international games in the recent past. No game to any venue in the northeast. Guwahati sometimes gets a few games that India have played in the recent bilateral series. There are no games played there as well. So there are
largely the games is centered around Delhi, Chennai, Lucknow, Pune, Bangalore, Mumbai, Ahmedabad. All in all, about 8 venues, 8 cities largely, where the games are going to be scheduled. But we're short on time right here, Nikhil and Rahul. Thank you very much. Of course, we're going to continue tracking this schedule of the ODI World Cup. That's going to start on the 5th of October all the way to 19th of November, a month-and-a-half long game. 3 months prior, the schedule is out. It is an exciting affair with the most important match of the highlighter, really, India-Pakistan on the 15th of October. On that note, I'm going to slip into a short break. We'll be right back with a lot more news on the other side. Do stay tuned.